Okay, insiders, in this video we're going to be discussing the Gann Box and how to actually use it to find setups in the market with order flow. This is a fairly new perspective. There won't be any ICT concepts in this technical analysis. Using these methods is going to help you have a real understanding of what the market is trying to tell you. And yes, the market is trying to tell us something by how much time it spends in a specific area. I'll be going over these 8 slides really quickly before we jump into the chart examples. So who is Gann for real before we even get into all of this? He's the pioneers of all this technical analysis stuff. I wouldn't say all, but he is one of the main ones. He's not as popular as Richard Wyckoff, but he is very respected. He had this demonstration in 1909 where he executed like 286 trades over like 25 days, and 264 of them were profitable. That's a 92% win rate. A win rate like that with almost 300 trades, I'm dropping down on my knees and doing who knows what. And that's what everyone did. He got his praise. But like my favorite thing about Gann is that he left his methodologies behind. We're not going to be going over all of them. We're just going to be going over the Gann box and the symmetrical levels like around it. So what is the Gann box? It's just a tool to help us define a balance. That is literally it. It's going to be in trading view right over here. It's just these 3 lines, and to get it to look like mine, you need to have the settings looking like this. So this is our schematics. Before we even have a schematic, we need this pattern to occur. So we start with a swing low, we make a swing high, and we need to come back down 50% between the two, the swing low and the swing high. And then we need to break the swing high. And it's kind of like the breakup structure, but it's a little different because we must require price to come down 50% between these 2 levels. And that's my swing low schematic. This is the swing high. It's literally just the opposite. Swing high, swing low, come up to the 50%, and then break the low, and only then is the range defined. So how important is the volume profile? I'm pretty sure we all know what the volume profile is, but we need to know how to read it and what is like it's saying about our schematic. And that is the basis of the model, where the market chooses to accept that in our schematic. The main components of the volume profile is literally the point of control, value area, and grouping density. I'm not going to be going over the grouping density until we get into the chart. So balance resolution logic. What is balance resolution? It's basically a breakout. We all know the market can't sit in a range forever, so it must break out. But what is a balance? It's literally a range. It's the consolidation. It is the auction. But what do we know about all of those things? They don't last forever. They must resolve. So it is the process of the market moving from rotational price action into directional discovery. When price is inside a balance, the market is still agreeing on fair value. So the upper and lower extremes usually act as rejection points. A balance is a compression. The longer price stays contained, the more liquidity and pressure builds around the edges. Eventually, the market needs to resolve that pressure by accepting higher value or accepting lower value. A balance is a pressure battle. Price rotates because neither side has fully won yet. But every failed push, every defended extreme, and every trap participant adds pressure to one side of the auction. Eventually, that side that has accumulated the most pressure forces the market to resolve. This is how all real breakouts work. But before we even understand like anything about the balance, we need to understand the anatomy of it, and doing that is through the volume profile. This is going to help us understand where we're going to start a new balance. So you remember how I said we want to answer the most important question. Where is the dominance in the schematic? Where did we accept and the schematic, this is how we're going to find it. We're going to use the volume profile, and we will look for these three things: the point of control, majority of the value area, and better grouping. Okay, before we get into the live examples, I need to explain like how I split up the Gann box. So this is what your Gann box should look like, but I want to establish that I split it into 4 sections. This being the first section, section 1. We have section 2, section 3, and section 4. So obviously section 1 is above this line here. Section 2 is between the top line and the 50% line. And then section 3 is the 50% to the bottom line. And then below the bottom line is section 4. Okay, now that we went over that, we need to go into how to identify bullish or bearish in our Gann box. So we use the volume profile, and we're looking for dominance. What does that really mean? We're looking for majority value area, the point of control, and then just grouping density. So let's just pretend that there's a volume profile over here. Feel me? So with this, we would want to say that there is dominance inside section 2, just based off of the fact that we have the peak of the volume profile at the midpoint, but then we have this large section here. It's inside section 2, which means bullish pressure. So that means we would be going up. And then let's just do it over again. This time, something like that, right? We have bearish pressure because we have dominance in section 3. It's inside section 3. And with that being said, we would be looking for shorts. So it's vice versa for the buys. Okay, this is the first example. We got a swing low schematic here. But first I want to show y'all my anchor profile. Y'all could take a screenshot of the settings if you want it to look like mine. But I like it because I have the colors set up in a way where I can see the value area pretty clearly, and the value area high and the value area low. So we have a swing low schematic here. If you go back to the diagram, you will see that you have to start with the swing low. Find your swing high right there. Price has to come down to the 50% line before it breaks the high. But once it comes down to the 50%, then we are able to break this high. And once this high is broken, only then is the swing low schematic defined. And I place my profile here because I want to get a picture, the whole picture of this area. And I know it influences price behavior, like all this price action over here. So with that being said, you could also just place a profile at the actual swing low to keep it simple. But you'll get better when it comes to actually placing, knowing where to place your profile as time goes on. But as we can see here, we have bullish pressure in section 2. How do I know that? Is I'm literally just looking at the profile. We see the point of control inside of section 2 and majority of the value area on both of these profiles here. And we don't even have to explain grouping density in this example because majority of the value area is inside section 2. And usually where the majority of the value area is, usually you'll have better grouping density. So this is how I actually place my projection over the schematic. We only do 1-to-1. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you start trading 1-to-1, your life is going to be easier, bro. So we place it like this. You would enter at the top line, put your stop loss at the low, and just project 1-to-1. This happened at 9:30. So let's see how this played out. And we hit the target. Most of these examples are going to be, well, really all of them, they're going to be on NASDAQ. I'm a NASDAQian. I only trade NASDAQ, but the concepts is universal. Like, it can be used in multiple instruments, not just NASDAQ. Okay, for the second example, we have a swing high schematic. Go back to the diagram if you need help. Start with the swing high, find your low, and price must have rotated back into the 50% line and broke the low afterwards. Once we identify our schematic, we want to place our profile in a place where we could get the entire picture. And then you could place it at the high if you want to. So from this, we could already see that we have majority of the value area inside section 3. We also have the point of control inside section 3. So from this, we can automatically take away that this has bearish pressure inside this schematic, inside this balance. So with that being said, we will be looking for shorts. And we look for the 1-to-1 projection from the schematic. It is literally the opposite of the buy. You would have your entry on the bottom line and your stop loss at the top line. And by the way, this is really not my whole model. This is the basics of my model, the foundation of like what I look for to establish, like, okay, where did we accept that? You know what I mean? And that automatically gives me a directional bias, but that is not the entire thing. Like, you're gonna have to watch my other videos to really understand like how I actually execute on these trades, but this is the very basics. So we would be looking for shorts here in the schematic, and we would be looking for it to actually go 1-to-1. 1-to-1 for us is a real breakout. If it hasn't gone 1-to-1 outside of this region, it is staying within the region. It's staying within the range. You know, that's not a real breakout. So as we can see here, we came down to our 1-to-1 level. And that is a real breakout to me. Okay, for the third example, we have another swing low schematic. This is a swing low because we have a low. We found a high. The high retraced 50%. Remember, the 50% is just the minimum. It can definitely go all the way through here. It just cannot break this low. So after it reaches the 50%, we want to see it come back above this level and break the high. Once the high is broke, then the range is defined. I'm going to place my profile here for this example to illustrate a very important thing. So we clearly have dominance in section 3 right now. How did I figure that out? I'm looking at the point of control. It is relatively close to midpoint, but I'm looking at the majority of the value area, and I think this is a good example of grouping density. So if we just look at section 2, the profile in section 2, it does not have majority of the value area. The majority of the orange there is more orange inside section 3 than there is section 2 at the moment. And also, the profile actually raises more inside section 3 than it is in section 2, and that is a way to visualize grouping density on TradingView. I use other platforms like Deep Charts. I could show an example in this video, but we're going to be sticking with TradingView for right now. But what we could take from this is that we have bearish pressure inside of the schematic, even though it's a swing low schematic. You know what I'm saying? We broke this high. Is why this is not as simple as market structure or breaker structure. No, it's a little bit deeper than that. So before we would even want to consider any shorts, we would want to see price get back down here first. And in the meantime, what can it do? Like, the profile can keep developing, you feel me? And it could change the pressure, where the pressure is actually residing at. So as we can see, like already, we have a shift of pressure. The majority of the value area is now inside section 2. And I would want to also say that the profile actually does become bigger inside this section. Right here is bigger than this right here. So that's how I really like visualize where most of the volume is compacted at. Like, you have to actually split up the profile a little bit, and that's how you really like visualize grouping density. So now that we've actually shifted the pressure, what would we be looking for? We would be looking for longs. So how do we even do that? We place it over the schematic, 1-to-1. It's a big boy, 389 points. Something like that. This out the way. So we will be looking for longs, because we understand that the market chose to accept above here. And we would have the projection as 1-to-1. And you could see the profile actually develop as this thing goes on. And another thing that I could talk about when it comes to acceptance, like, the longer price spends more time, like just inside your section, the better, the stronger it actually becomes. So this would have been a profitable trade. Yes, it would have took a long time, but there is other requirements that I have other than this to actually enter a trade, and I could explain it here, but I'm not going to do it in this video. I suggest you watch my Warrior Swing video for that, but this is the third example. Fourth example, we have a swing high schematic. Find our swing high, swing low, come up to the 50%, break the low, plot your profile, and we understand that this is going to influence price behavior to a certain extent, so we're going to place another profile here. So from this profile, it's telling a totally different story than this profile right here. When things line up like this, you usually want to relate like the more extended profile to being like higher time frame structure, the same way we say that higher time frame structure is more trustworthy than lower time frame structure. You would want to use that same idea with the profiles. The more extended the profile, the more trustworthy the actual order flow reading is. So I mean, you would want this profile, your recent profiles, to also agree too. It just makes the probability of this playing out just stronger. So like from this profile, we have dominance in section 3. On this profile, I would actually say that it's pretty close. But I mean, no, you would say that it's section 2 right now. But we all know that it could develop to being better on section 3, especially since the more extended profile says so. So that is the projection. We would want to be looking for shorts. And yes, this occurs on the higher time frame too. The thing about balances is that they have a fractal nature. The same thing that has happened on the very lowest time frame is happening on the highest of high time frames. And like as this is developing, let me pause real quick. Like this profile was once section 2 dominated, which is bullish pressure, right? And as we can see, it literally changed to section 3, like all the way. You feel me? So it's like kind of cool that the recent profile ended up aligning with the extended profile. And something that you're going to notice, you're going to have to ignore all this, but something that you're going to notice is that price tends to like hit the 1-to-1 level and then actually like reverse. You know what I mean? It will do that a lot because this is literally what Gann was talking about with using sacred geometry. It's really basic because we're just using the Gann box to identify the symmetrical lines, or levels, I should say, within price. And whenever you reach the 1-to-1 level, it tends to want to correct itself and actually like come back into the range, almost like it's an algorithm. Okay, so we got our next example. Swing high schematic. Find your high, your low, and price must have rotated back up to the 50%. Once we identify our schematic, we could place our profile. Where should we place this profile? I kind of want to get all of this inside of this reading. We could place that there. And what we could automatically see from here is the majority of the value areas in section 3. Point of control is near midpoint, and that's something I also want to go over. Your point of control can be at midpoint. If it is at midpoint, you would want to go off the value area. And let's say in some scenario that the whole thing is the value area, then you would want to go off a grouping. And that is just by like looking at the actual sections in the profile, being able to actually visualize and split them up, and understanding where the biggest parts are actually at for real. So that's how we locate dominance. So dominance is clearly in section 3. So we would be looking for shorts. We place the projection over the schematic, 1-to-1. You guys know the rest. So another thing about this is like the longer price spends inside section 3, the stronger the idea becomes. This is a form of acceptance. Buyers and sellers have agreed upon where price is comfortable at. And this is where we're going to anticipate breakouts, where pressure builds on, your side of the balance is where you're usually going to find resolution. And these things could take a while, but order flow always prevails. So that is the next. And this is a really good example of the market literally reversing shortly after hitting the 1-to-1. Okay, now for the last example, we have a swing low schematic. Find your low, find your high. Make sure it comes back down to the 50 and has broke the high. Only at this point right here was the range defined. So with that being said, we place our profile. We don't have to place a profile anywhere back here because there is nothing back here at the moment. So the recent profile is going to influence price behavior the most in these type of scenarios. So we understand that we have majority value area in section 2, which means bullish pressure. So we place the 1-to-1 projection like so. And as you can see, we could do this on the 15-second. We could do this on the 4-hour. It's all the same. It's all the same patterns. So we just hit that target. So to really recap, what did we go over in this video? We explained how to define a schematic, and then we explained how to locate the dominance in the section of your schematic and what that says about our directional bias, how it gives us a directional bias. Like that alone gives you an edge. Like if you could open the chart and understand if you want bullish expansion today or bearish expansion today, no matter what strategy you want to use in the market, it's just another confluence. Understand that you have order flow pressure on your side. But I want you to remember that identifying this doesn't automatically equal a trade. If you want to know how I use this information to actually time and execute a trade, I suggest you look out for my next couple of videos, specifically the Warrior Swing video. Alright, y'all, so that's it. I'm going to end the video here. I'll catch y'all on the next one.